Welcome to Wisdom of the Bible. Connect with God through our Bible stories. What if a teenage captive in ancient Babylon saw visions that predict exactly what's happening in our world right now? Over 25 centuries ago, a prophet decoded dreams revealing every empire that would rise and fall until the end times. Daniel didn't just predict the future, he gave us the exact timeline, saw kingdoms before they existed, and prophesied the year the Messiah would appear. His visions were so terrifying they made him physically ill, yet angels called him highly esteemed by heaven itself. Stay with me, because what Daniel saw about our generation will change how you see everything unfolding today. Picture Jerusalem surrounded by the world's most powerful army, Babylonian siege engines ready, soldiers stretching beyond the horizon. When the city fell, sacred temple vessels were carried off to Babylon's pagan temples, as if their gods had defeated Israel's God. But Nebuchadnezzar wanted more than treasure. He wanted the brightest young minds from royal families to serve his empire. Among thousands of captives, 4 teenagers stood out: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Soon their faith would be tested. The Babylonians had a plan: 3 years of intensive training to transform Hebrew boys into loyal Babylonian officials. They even changed their names, erasing their Hebrew identities that honored God and replacing them with names honoring Babylon's false gods. Daniel became Belteshazzar, a name that was literally a prayer to a pagan deity, spoken every time someone called him. Then came the food from the king's table, the finest cuisine in the empire, but there was a serious problem. The meat violated God's law, and worse, it had been dedicated to idols before being served to them. Everything had been taken from these young men: their country, freedom, families, even their names, but this they could still control. Daniel resolved not to defile himself, but he didn't stage a protest. He approached the guard with wisdom and respect. The official liked Daniel but feared for his own life if these boys looked unhealthy compared to others. So Daniel proposed a test: 10 days of only vegetables and water, then judge the results yourself. The guard agreed, and for 10 days Daniel and his friends ate simple food while others feasted on royal delicacies. At the end, something impossible happened. They looked healthier and stronger than everyone who ate the king's finest food. God was honoring their faithfulness in this small test, but he was about to give them something far greater than physical health. God gave these 4 young men knowledge and understanding of all literature and learning beyond natural ability. After 3 years, King Nebuchadnezzar personally tested them and found them 10 times better than all his experienced magicians and enchanters. 4 teenage captives who'd been in Babylon only 3 years now surpassed experts who'd studied their entire lives. But Daniel received an extra gift that would change history. He could understand visions and dreams from God himself. One night, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream so powerful it shook him to his core, but when he woke, he couldn't remember it. The feeling remained, the certainty that he'd witnessed something monumentally important, but the details slipped away like smoke. Furious and desperate, the king summoned every wise man in Babylon with an impossible demand that would cost them everything. He ordered them to tell him what he'd dreamed and interpret it, or be cut to pieces with their houses destroyed. The magicians protested that no king in history had ever asked such a thing. Only the gods could reveal this. Wrong answer. Nebuchadnezzar ordered the execution of every wise man in Babylon, including Daniel and his friends who hadn't even been consulted. When armed men came to arrest them, Daniel spoke with wisdom and tact, asking why such a harsh decree was issued. After hearing the story, this young captive did something remarkably bold. He went straight to the furious king and asked for time. Daniel gathered his 3 friends and told them, "We need to pray for mercy or we'll all die with the rest." That night, while Daniel slept, God revealed the entire mystery, the dream and its interpretation, every detail perfectly clear. Daniel's first response wasn't to run to the king, it was to stop and worship, praising God for his wisdom and power. He made it clear to everyone, this answer came from God alone, not from any human ability or cleverness. Standing before the king, Daniel said, "No human can do what you ask, but there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries." Then he described exactly what Nebuchadnezzar had dreamed: a massive statue with a head of pure gold, chest of silver, belly of bronze. Its legs were iron, its feet a mixture of iron and clay, and while the king watched, a supernatural rock struck the statue's feet. The entire statue shattered into pieces so small they blew away like dust, but the rock grew into a mountain filling the whole earth. The king sat in astonishment. This was exactly his dream, every detail perfect, every image precisely as he'd seen it. Daniel had proven God's power by revealing the impossible, but now came the interpretation that would unlock the future of the world. Daniel explained, "You, O king, are the head of gold, Babylon, the first great empire in God's timeline of history. But after you, inferior kingdoms of silver, bronze, and iron would rise, each conquering the last until the final mixed kingdom. Then the God of heaven will establish a kingdom that will never be destroyed, crushing all earthly empires and lasting forever." Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face before Daniel, declaring, "Your God is the God of gods, the revealer of mysteries." The king promoted Daniel to ruler over Babylon's province and chief administrator over all the wise men who'd nearly been executed. But power corrupts. Years later, Nebuchadnezzar built a 90-foot golden statue and commanded everyone to bow when music played or burn alive. When the music sounded, thousands fell on their faces, except 3 young Hebrews who remained standing while everyone else bowed. Accusers rushed to the king. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refused to serve your gods or worship your golden image. The furious king gave them one chance: bow now or be thrown immediately into a furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual. Their answer became legendary: "Our God can deliver us, but even if he doesn't, we still won't bow to your image." Nebuchadnezzar's face twisted with rage. He ordered the furnace so hot it killed the soldiers who threw them in. Suddenly the king leaped up in shock, asking his advisors, "Didn't we throw 3 men bound into the fire? Look! I see 4 men walking unharmed in the flames, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods." God himself had entered the fire with his faithful servants, protecting them in the midst of their suffering. When they emerged, not a hair was singed, their robes unscorched, without even the smell of smoke on them. The king proclaimed, "Praise the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, no other God can save like this." Years later, God gave Daniel visions of 4 beasts rising from the sea, representing kingdoms that would dominate until the end times. He saw thrones set up in heaven, the Ancient of Days taking his seat, and one like a son of man receiving an eternal kingdom. God told Daniel, "Seal these words until the time of the end, when many will go back and forth and knowledge will increase." Daniel was promised, "You will rest, then rise at the end of days to receive your inheritance, shining like the stars forever." If this story has challenged your faith, share it with someone who needs to hear it and subscribe for more biblical stories. The prophecies are being fulfilled. Will you stand firm like Daniel when your moment of testing comes?